How was your day? Maybe someone felt far away tonight, even if they were right there beside you. Distance isn't always miles. There's a weaver in Chinese mythology who loved someone she wasn't supposed to. She lost him, not because he left, but because the sky itself tore open between them. If today felt like reaching and not quite touching, she'd know. Let your shoulders drop. Let tonight be simple. We're going back, far back, to the moment a river of stars appeared where there used to be nothing, and two people stood on opposite sides. The Queen Mother, ruler of heaven, pulled the golden hairpin from her hair. She dragged it across the sky, and where the pin touched, the sky split open. Stars poured through like a flood. A river of stars filled the gap. On one side, a woman screaming. On the other, a man holding two children, reaching across an ocean that hadn't existed a breath ago. That fast. That permanent. Why would heaven punish love? What kind of crime is it? To marry someone, raise children, live a quiet life at the edge of a valley. The answer matters, and it hides in how they met. She wasn't just a woman. She was the granddaughter of the Queen Mother of the West, the one who wove the clouds each morning. Her loom made the colors of the sky. And he was just a coward. Nobody. Orphaned, cast out by his own brother, sleeping beside an old ox in a pen that leaked when it rained. The distance between them was supposed to be infinite. This is what we do here. Every week, one story, one night. Something that happened so long ago the stars remember it. And still has something to say to you tonight. Get comfortable now. Adjust your pillow, find your warmth. If you drift off before the end, the stars won't mind. They've been watching over sleeping lovers for thousands of years. This is only the beginning of their story, the part most people have never heard. That's still ahead. But not tonight. Tonight, just this. If tonight felt like something, subscribe. We'll be here next week. Another story, another night like this. Now back to ours. Niu Lang had no parents. They died when he was small, too small to remember their faces. His elder brother took the farmland, the house, the savings, gave Niu Lang one thing, the old ox. The brother's wife couldn't stand the sight of him. One morning she said, "Leave, take the ox. Don't come back." He was 12 years old. He didn't argue, he just walked. He built a shelter from what he could find. Mud walls, a thatched roof, a fence made of bamboo. It wasn't much, but it was his. The ox stood in the yard and watched him work like it understood. Years passed. Niu Lang grew. Strong, quiet voice, sun lines around his eyes. He talked to the ox because there was no one else. The ox always listened. You've known someone like that. One night, the ox spoke. Its mouth opened and a voice came out. Not an animal sound, words. Niu Lang dropped his bowl. The rice scattered across the ground. The ox didn't blink. The ox had been a god once. A celestial ox spirit cast down from heaven for a small disobedience. It had watched Niu Lang grow up alone, and now it had one thing to tell him. Tomorrow, go to the mountain pool. The ox told him everything. Once a celestial spirit, punished for letting a mortal glimpse heaven. Cast down into the body of a water buffalo, horns instead of a crown, mud instead of clouds. But it remembered heaven. The palaces, the gardens, the beings who lived there. And it remembered the celestial maidens, the daughters and granddaughters of the Queen Mother. They came down sometimes, to bathe. Tomorrow, the ox said, at the mountain pool. They'll come at dusk, and one of them, the youngest, will be wearing a robe of feathers, pink and white, like dawn woven into cloth. Take the robe, the ox said. Hide it. Without it she cannot return to heaven. She'll have to stay. Niu Lang stared at the ox. That doesn't sound right, he said. The ox didn't answer. He went anyway. Through bamboo, up the mountain path, past rocks he'd climbed as a boy. The pool was exactly where the ox described. Hidden behind willows, fed by a waterfall that made no sound. He hid behind a rock. Waited, the sun dropped behind the mountains. And then light. Not sunset. Something else. Coming down through the clouds like a slow rain of gold. 7 maidens touched down on the stones at the water's edge. Their robes, each a different color, folded and placed on the rocks. They stepped into the pool. The water shone. He saw her, the youngest, long black hair floating on the water, a face that made him forget why he'd come. His hands didn't move toward the robe. They just stayed at his sides. A branch snapped under his foot. She turned. Their eyes met across the water. The other maidens scattered, grabbed their robes, vanished into the sky in a rush of colored light. She didn't move. He picked up her robe, held it out to her. Not hiding it, offering it. "Here," he said. "You should go." She looked at the robe, looked at him, and stayed. Maybe you know that feeling. Someone sees you, really sees you. And instead of running, something in you goes quiet. Not surrender. Recognition. She recognized him. He just didn't know it yet. She came down the mountain with him, barefoot on the dirt path, the feathered robe folded under her arm. The ox was waiting at the bottom. And if an ox could smile, this one did. In most versions of this story, he steals the robe. She's trapped. But the oldest version, the one the grandmothers whisper, he gives it back, and she chooses to stay anyway. Remember that, for later. Whether she stayed by force or by choice changes everything about what happens next. The sky remembers. And the sky doesn't forgive the same way twice. They married. No ceremony, no guests. Just the two of them standing in the yard, the ox's witness, and a red cloth tied around their wrists. That was enough. It was everything. She taught herself the mortal loom. Wood instead of jade. Cotton instead of starlight. Her first cloth was uneven. She laughed at it. He'd never heard a sound like that before. He plowed, she wove. The ox pulled. Seasons turned the valley gold, then white, then green again. Their life was small. And the smallness of it. That was the point. The first child came in autumn. A boy. He cried with his whole body. Fists clenched, face red, voice filling the small cottage like a storm. New Lang held him and his own hands were shaking. The second came in spring. A girl. Quieter than her brother. Born watching. She grabbed her mother's finger and didn't let go for an hour. The ox stood outside the door the whole time, waiting. 4 people and an ox. That was the whole world. Niu Lang carried the boy on his shoulders through the rice paddies. Giordano held the girl at her loom and wove with one hand. Some nights she'd stand outside and look up. He noticed. He never asked. But sometimes her eyes caught the starlight in a way that wasn't quite human. The silver flecks would glow, just for a moment, then fade. Here's the part the myths never make obvious. She wasn't hiding from heaven. She was hiding from the fact that heaven hadn't noticed. 3 years, and no one came looking. She started to hope. That was the mistake. The cloth she wove on her mortal loom. People in the valley started asking for it. There was something in the weave. Colors that shifted in the light. Patterns that seemed to move. She couldn't help it. Divinity leaked through. Word spread. The cloth from the valley. The weaver who never made the same pattern twice. It reached the next village, then the next. News travels upward, too, if you give it enough time. But for now, mornings. The boy chasing chickens around the bamboo fence. The girl sitting in the doorway drawing shapes in the dirt with a stick. The ox dozing in the shade. Normal, precious. Juanu taught the boy to count using threads. 1, 2, 3. Each a different color pulled from the loom. He'd line them up on the floor. She'd scramble them. He'd sort them again. Patient, like her. Niu Lang taught the girl to talk to the ox. Put your hand here, he said. On the neck. Feel the pulse. That's how you know he's listening. She pressed her palm flat and whispered her first word. Ox. 5 years passed like water through fingers. The thatched roof needed mending twice. The bamboo fence grew new shoots. The ox got slower. The children got taller. Nothing lasts, but some things pretend to. One evening, Janani wove something different. Not cloth, a picture. 2 stars side by side, no river between them. She hung it on the wall and said nothing. Niu Lang saw it. He said nothing either. The boy asked one night, "Where did you come from, mother?" She paused at the loom. "From very far away," she said. The boy asked if she missed it. She pulled a thread tight. Sometimes she said the sky. That night New Lang lay awake, listening to her breathe, the children asleep between them. He thought, if I lose her, I'll still have had this. And he hated that thought, because it felt like preparation. The ox stopped eating. New Lang brought fresh grass, grain, water from the mountain spring. The ox turned its head away from all of it. Something was ending. He could feel it in the way the animal breathed, slower each day. On the last night, the ox spoke again. The golden light returned, weaker now, flickering like a candle about to go out. Listen, it said, when I'm gone, keep my hide. You'll need it, trust me. The ox closed its eyes. The golden light went out. The pen was dark. New Lang stayed beside it until morning, his hand on its neck, feeling the pulse slow. Then nothing. The children watched from the doorway. The boy put his arm around his sister. She held her cloth doll tight. They didn't ask questions. Children know death before anyone teaches them the word. Joanna helped him prepare the hide. She handled it carefully, as if she knew what it was, what it could do. She folded it and placed it in the wooden chest beside her feathered robe. 2 gifts from 2 worlds. The farm was quieter without the ox. Its absence was a shape in the yard, a space the chickens didn't cross, a shadow that had no source. Grief takes up exactly as much room as love did. Life continued. Because it does. The boy learned to pull weeds. The girl started humming while she played, the same melody her mother hummed at the loom. Nobody taught her. It just appeared, like starlight through cracks. 6 months passed. Juani's cloth grew more beautiful. She couldn't stop it. The celestial skill sharpened with every piece. Colors no dye could explain. Patterns that seemed to breathe. People came from far away to buy it. One night she sat up in the dark. Something in the air, a vibration too high for mortal ears. She walked outside and looked up. The sky was cloudless, perfectly, terrifyingly empty. She hadn't woven the clouds in 6 years. Someone had noticed. She went back inside, lay down beside her children, pulled them close. New Lang opened one eye. Everything all right? Fine, she said. Everything's fine. The lie sat between them like a stone. Every year on the 7th night of the 7th month, people across China look up. They call it Qixi, the night of sevens. It's been happening for over 2,000 years. And it started here, with this story. Young women would set up tables in their courtyards, needles, thread, fruit, incense. They'd thread a needle by moonlight, 7 threads through 1 needle. If you succeeded, Joanna would bless your hands with her skill. Offerings to Joanna, melons, flowers, red thread. Prayers whispered toward the star they called the Weaver Star, Vega. She'd been shining up there the whole time, still weaving, still waiting. Couples would stand together and look for the 2 stars. Altair, the coward, Vega, the weaver. If you could see them both clearly that night, your love would last. That's what the grandmothers promised. The Chinese called it their Valentine's Day, long before Valentine had a name. 2,000 years of lovers looking up at the same 2 stars. 2,000 years of hoping the magpies would come. They always did. But back to the story. Back to the farm, and the woman who knew the sky was watching. She wove faster now, as if the thread could hold things together, as if the pattern could keep heaven away. Heaven's sky had turned dull. Without the weaver girl, the clouds lost their shape. Sunsets flattened. Dawns arrived without color. The celestial officials noticed first. Then the Queen Mother. 6 years, the Queen Mother said. 6 years and no one told me. She stood at the edge of heaven and looked down through the clouds. And there, in a valley, she saw the cloth, the glow in the thread, her granddaughter. A mortal, married. The Queen Mother's rage was not fire. It was ice. She did not shout. She did not break things. She simply said, "Bring her back." And every celestial soldier in heaven stood at attention. They came at dawn, descending through the clouds like a storm with a purpose. Golden armor catching the first light. Spears pointed downward. The chickens scattered first. Then the children screamed. Niu Lang ran from the field, still holding the plow handle. He rounded the corner and saw them, soldiers in the yard, his wife between them, the children pressed against the cottage wall. She wasn't fighting. Her eyes said, "Don't." They lifted her off the ground. Her bare feet left the dirt, the last mortal thing she touched. She looked down at her children, at her husband, at the small farm that had been the entire universe. And then the clouds closed. The boy pulled free and ran after her, toward the sky. Of course he did. He was 6 years old. He ran until his legs gave out and he fell in the field, face in the dirt, reaching up, his mother already gone. Niu Lang picked him up, carried him back. The girl was still where they'd left her, against the wall, holding her cloth doll, not crying, not making any sound at all. That was worse. 3 people in the cottage that night. The bed too wide, the loom abandoned, the wooden chest still against the wall. Inside it, the ox hide, and next to it, empty space where the feathered robe had been. She'd left it behind. Stay with this. It matters before the end. She left the robe, the thing that could carry her back to heaven. She left it in his chest. Some people would call that an accident. But Jai Nun Wove the sky. She didn't make accidents. You've been there. Lost someone and found a clue they left behind. A note in a jacket pocket. A photo where there shouldn't be one. Not an accident. A message, stay, I'll find a way. Niu Lang didn't sleep that night. He sat in the ox pen, empty now, and stared at the straw where the ox had died. The ox had told him to keep the hide, and now Jianu had left the robe. 2 messages from 2 worlds, the same word, go. At dawn, he made his decision. He pulled the ox hide from the chest. It was heavy, heavier than it should have been, as if the ox was still inside it, still carrying him one last time. He woke the children, put a cloth around the girl, lifted the boy onto his hip, wrapped all 3 of them in the ox hide, and then the hide remembered what it was. What happens next is the reason this story survived 3,000 years. They rose. Through the morning mist, through the clouds, the farm became a square of brown. The mountains became wrinkles. The whole world became small, and they kept going. The children had never been this high. The boy stared down and his grip tightened. The girl looked up and saw the stars getting closer. "Mama is up there," she said. The boy said, "I know, let's go faster." They entered heaven's edge. The air changed, thicker, warmer, tasting of peach blossoms and old metal. Light came from everywhere and nowhere. The ox hide carried them forward like a boat on an invisible current. He could see her, ahead, far ahead, being led by 2 soldiers along a cloud road, her hair loose, her feet bare, walking slowly because there was nowhere left to run. But he was coming. She didn't know it yet. The ox hide moved faster. It knew. Whatever was left of the celestial ox spirit, it poured everything into this last journey. The hide glowed brighter. The children held on. Niu Lang leaned forward into the wind. Jueyun heard the children first, not the soldiers, not the wind, her children. The girl calling Mama. She stopped walking, turned, and saw them. Flying toward her inside a glowing skin she recognized. Close, so close. She started running toward them. The soldiers behind her shouting, "Stop." She didn't stop. The children reaching out, small arms across the shrinking distance. Niu Lang's hands stretching forward, fingers spread. 30 feet. 20. 10. She could see the conluces on his hands. He could count the silver flecks in her eyes. The children were screaming her name. 5 feet, their fingertips. The Queen Mother pulled the golden hairpin from her crown, drew it across the sky between them. 1 stroke, like a brush through silk, and the sky split open. Stars poured through the wound. Billions of them, rushing, flooding, filling the gap with a river that had no beginning and no end. Where their fingers almost touched, an ocean of light now raged. Niu Lang screamed her name. The sound crossed the river and arrived as something else, a vibration, a hum. The river swallowed words. It swallowed everything but the seeing. They could still see each other. That was the cruelty. The girl said, "Why can't we go to Mama?" Niu Lang knelt down, held both children, looked at them. "Because the river is too wide," he said. "But I can see her," the girl said. "I know," he said. "I know." The Queen Mother turned and walked back to her throne. She did not look at Jueyani. She did not look at the children. The law of heaven was clear. A goddess does not live among mortals. This was mercy in her mind, correction. The ox hide settled onto the cloud. Its glow faded. Whatever spirit had carried it, that was done now. The last gift spent. Niu Lang sat on the dead hide with his children and watched his wife across an impossible distance. He didn't leave. That's the part that matters. He could have taken the children and gone home. Back to the farm, back to the mortal world, back to safety. He stayed. At the edge of an ocean of stars. And he waited. Across the river, Junanyu did the same. She sat at the edge and wove. Not cloud fabric. There was no loom. She wove with her fingers, pulling threads from the starlight itself, making something no one had asked for, making something beautiful from an impossible place. Days passed in heaven. On the mortal earth below, seasons turned, spring, summer, autumn. But at the river of stars, time moved differently, slower. Each hour stretched like thread pulled too thin. Niu Lang learned the rhythms of heaven. The light that pulsed like breathing. The silence that wasn't empty. It hummed with something older than sound. He taught the children to sleep on clouds. It was harder than it sounds. Across the water, Joyoung could see them sleeping. She could see the girl's cloth doll. The boys crossed arms, just like his father. She counted their breaths by the rise of their small bodies. It was all she had. She started sending messages. Small weavings, no bigger than a leaf, dropped into the river of stars. The current carried them. Most dissolved. But sometimes, on the far shore, Niu Lang would find one washed up. A tiny pattern. A word she'd woven into light. The first one said, "Wait." The second said, "I'm here." The third, "I love you." Small words. But each one had crossed an ocean of stars to arrive. Every letter weighed as much as a planet. The boy learned to skip stones across the star river. Not real stones. Pieces of compressed cloud that Niu Lang shaped for him. They skipped 3, 4, 5 times before dissolving. The boy counted each skip, as if counting could build a bridge. The girl stopped asking when they'd see Mama. She stopped asking on the 14th day. Niu Lang noticed. He wished she'd kept asking. Questions meant hope. Silence meant she'd learned something no 3-year-old should know. He told them stories. The ox. Remember the ox? How it ate the entire vegetable garden that one spring. The boy laughed. The girl didn't remember. She was too young. She held her doll and listened like it was someone else's life. Juan wove constantly now. Not because anyone asked. Because her hands needed something to do besides reach across the river. Thread by thread, she pulled starlight from the void and made it into something her fingers could hold. The celestial officials avoided her shore. They'd walk the cloud roads and turn away before reaching her bank. Guilt maybe, or fear. A goddess separated from her children. That's not something you look at directly. Like staring at the sun. In the heavenly court, the loom sat empty, dust on the jade. The threads of light had dimmed without hands to guide them. The sky above the mortal world continued to lose its color. Sunsets turned gray at the edges. No one spoke about it. The Queen Mother sat on her throne. The dull sky annoyed her. But admitting why it was dull, that would mean admitting the girl was needed. And admitting need is not something the ruler of heaven does. But below, something was gathering. Small black and white birds. Thousands of them. Hopping along walls, perching on rooftops. Sitting in rows along the edges of heaven. Magpies. Watching the woman. Watching the children. Magpies remember things. In every culture that tells this story, the magpies are never surprised. They don't learn about the lover's pain. They witness it, and then they decide. The old magpie, the one the others followed, landed on the cloud beside Niu Lang. Looked at him with one eye, then the other, then flew across the river and landed beside Juan Yu. Looked at her, flew back, as if measuring the distance with its body. The magpies didn't ask permission. They didn't petition the Queen Mother. They didn't file a request with the celestial officials. They just chose. The seventh night of the seventh moon. That's when they'd do it. The seventh night arrived. The boy felt it first. A change in the air. Something humming. Like the night before a storm, except this wasn't a storm. This was the opposite. He grabbed his father's hand. "Something's coming," he said. They came from everywhere. Every magpie in the world, rising from rooftops, from bamboo groves, from rice paddies and willow trees. Black and white rivers of birds pouring upward into the sky. An army of compassion. The first magpie touched down on the river's surface. It didn't sink. Its wings spread wide. The next landed beside it. Then the next. Wing to wing. Body to body. A living floor forming across the impossible water. More came. Hundreds. Thousands. The bridge grew from both shores at once, meeting in the middle. The magpies sang as they locked wings. Not a beautiful king sound. Effort. Strain. Love made physical. The bridge connected. A gasp. From somewhere, from everywhere. A single continuous path of living birds spanning the river of stars. Feathers catching the light, the surface shifting under its own aliveness. It breathed. Niu Lang looked at the bridge, at his children. At the far shore where a figure stood up slowly. A woman with long black hair and glowing fingertips, and a face he could finally see clearly. He picked up both children and stepped onto the birds. The bridge swayed, the magpies shifted under his weight. Feathers brushed his ankles. He walked, one step. The children clung to him. The far shore getting closer, her face getting clearer. Jianyi started walking toward them, then faster. Then running, barefoot across the magpie bridge, the birds adjusting under her weight. Her hair streaming, her hands outstretched, the distance between them collapsing into nothing. Contact. Her arms around the children first, pulling them from his grip, pressing their faces against her neck, her cheeks, her hair. The boy's arms locked around her shoulders. The girl said one word, "Mama." Then she looked up, at him. He was standing there with empty arms, hands open, palms up, waiting. She reached one hand across the children and placed it on his face. He closed his eyes, leaned into her palm. The caluses on his cheek against the glow of her fingers. The magpies held them, every bird on that bridge trembling with effort, but holding. Not one complained, not one flew away. The river raged beneath. The stars shone above. 4 people stood on a bridge made of compassion, and the universe paused. Jian held the children and talked, fast, telling them everything. How tall they'd grown, how the boy's chin was sharper, how the girl's hair was longer. A year of seeing compressed into sentences. Words tumbling over each other like water. The boy told her about the ox stone game. He'd invented it, throwing cloud pieces across the river, counting the skips. 4 was his record. He wanted 5. She said, "We'll practice, together." The girl showed her the cloth doll. It had a new stitch. Niu Lang's thick, clumsy repair where an arm had come loose. Jianyu looked at the stitch and laughed. That sound. Across the river of stars it carried. Niu Lang sat beside her on the bridge and said nothing for a while, their shoulders touching. The children climbing between them. He didn't need to talk. They'd said everything already. With a year of not giving up, she told him about the exile shore. The cold. The silence. How she wove because stopping would mean accepting. He told her about the ox pen. Empty now. The chickens. The way the girl hummed her melody without being taught. She pressed her hand over her mouth. This moment is easy to miss, but it changes everything. The Magpie Bridge is not just a bridge, it's an argument. Every bird on it is saying the same thing. This separation is wrong. We will fix it. Even if heaven won't. The boy fell asleep on the bridge, head in his mother's lap. The girl followed, curled against her father, but one hand stretched across to grip her mother's sleeve. Even in sleep, she wouldn't let go. Niu Lang and Ji Umyu looked at each other over the sleeping children. They didn't say, "When will this end?" They didn't say, "It's not fair." They just looked. And in the looking was everything. Hours passed. Not enough hours, they never would be. Juno wove a small piece while the children slept, pulling threads from the river, her fingers moving by instinct. She didn't look at it. She looked at them. She pressed the finished weaving into Niu Lang's palm. "For them," she said. "When they miss me." He looked at the cloth. In the silver threads, 2 small sleeping children, woven from starlight, perfect. The sky began to lighten. Not dawn, heaven doesn't have dawn, but a brightness at the edge. The magpies felt it. A tremor passed through the bridge. Feathers rustled. The birds knew time was ending. "Wake up," Janani whispered. The boy opened his eyes, saw his mother's face above him, lit by stars and tears. "Mama," he said, "I was dreaming about the farm." She smiled. "Tell me about it later," she said. "Next time." The girl woke crying. She knew before she opened her eyes. Niu Lang held her tight, the cloth doll wedged between them, the girl's small fists beating against his chest, not at him, at everything. Held both children's faces in her hands. "Listen," she said. "I will always be the star above you, every night. Look up, that bright one. That's me. I'm weaving for you always." The magpies began to separate. One bird pulled its wing free, then another. The bridge thinning at the edges, dissolving back into individual birds. The surface under their feet becoming less solid. They had minutes. Niu Lang lifted both children, held them one last moment against Jueng, 4 bodies, 1 shape. The bridge sinking, the birds scattering. Then he stepped backward, 1 step 2, carrying the children toward his shore, their fingers, one last time, his hand reaching back, her hand reaching forward, the tips touching across the widening gap. Then air, then nothing. The bridge dissolved, and the river filled the space like it had been waiting. Silence, the kind that follows something enormous. The river flowing, the stars shining, 2 shores, 2 sides. The distance back to what it was, but not the same. Because now they knew the magpies would come again. 1 night. That's what the magpies gave them. 1 night per year. It sounds cruel, but think about it differently. Think about what 1 night means when you know it's coming. How every day points toward it. How it makes the waiting bearable. The boy grew. Each year he was taller on the bridge, his voice deeper. His mother measured him with her hands, palms on his shoulders, eyes widening. "You're almost as tall as your father," she said 1 year. He stood straighter. The girl brought a new cloth doll each year, soon herself, getting better. The stitches tighter, the shape more precise. On the 7th year, the doll looked almost real. Juyenyu examined the stitching. Her daughter had inherited her hands. And every year, the same goodbye. The bridge dissolving, the fingers separating. The wave across the water, the counting beginning again. 364 days of waiting. 1 night of having, and somehow, it was enough. The 2 stars in this story are real. You can see them tonight. Altair, the coward star, in the constellation Aquila, and Vega, the weaver's star, in Lyra. Between them, the Milky Way flows. Ancient Chinese astronomers looked up and saw a love story. Altair and Vega are 16 light years apart. Light that left Altair when you were born hasn't reached Vega yet. The universe doesn't measure love in miles, but it puts obstacles between things that belong together. Chinese astronomers 2,500 years ago cataloged these stars. They called them the weaving maid and the coward. The story came first, or the stars came first. No one remembers which. They grew together, the way roots and soil do. Every civilization with dark skies saw those 2 stars. The Babylonians, the Greeks, the Japanese. But only the Chinese saw lovers. Only the Chinese imagined a bridge of birds. Only they looked at the sky and thought, someone should help. The stars don't move, not visibly, not in a human lifetime. Altair and Vega will hold their positions for thousands of years. The river between them will flow, and every 7th night of the 7th moon, if you believe the grandmothers, the magpies still fly. Back to the river, back to the waiting. Time moves differently when you're counting towards something. Niu Lang knew every mark on the cloud where he sat, every ripple in the star water. He mapped the river with his eyes like a farmer maps a field. The children developed rituals. Every morning, wave to the far shore. Every evening, count the magpies gathering. Every night, fall asleep facing the river. Routine is how mortals survive the impossible. The Queen Mother observed. She said nothing. She noticed the magpies and said nothing. She noticed the bridge every 7th moon and said nothing. Her silence was not approval, but it was not destruction either. Something had shifted, even in her. Some say she wept once alone, in the weaving hall standing before her granddaughter's empty loom, her hand on the jade surface. One tear, caught in the pearl strings, no one saw, or no one admits they saw. Years turned. The boy became a young man, his mother's silver-flecked eyes in his father's sun-lined face. He started skipping real stones, not cloud, not stardust. He'd carry them up from the mortal world. They sank, but the sound they made hitting the star water, that was new. The girl became a weaver, not celestial, mortal, thread and cotton and patience. But the patterns she made carried something of her mother, a shimmer in the cloth that shouldn't be there. Some things passed through blood. Niu Lang's hair went gray at the temples, then white. He moved slower. But he never missed a 7th night, never missed a step onto the bridge. His body aged, his dedication didn't. Joinon didn't age. She was a goddess. Time didn't mark her, but something changed in her face each year. Not wrinkles, understanding. The look of someone who has watched a human lifetime through a window. On the bridge, she'd trace the new gray in his hair with her fingertips. He'd catch her hand and say, "Don't count them." She'd say, "I'm not counting. I'm memorizing." He'd look away, because that answer was worse. The children, not children anymore, started bringing things to the bridge. Food from the mortal world. Seeds, a cutting from the bamboo fence. Small pieces of the farm for their mother. Evidence of the life she'd chosen and lost. She kept everything. Her shore of the river, once barren, became a small garden of mortal things. A bamboo cutting in a cloud pot. Grain she couldn't eat but liked to hold. The cloth dolls, all of them every year's doll, arranged in a row. 13, 14, 30 years. 40, the son married. Brought his wife to the bridge. Joyunyi touched the woman's face and searched for, she didn't know what. Kindness. Maybe. Something that would hold her son the way she couldn't. She found it. Grandchildren came. Small faces that had never known the farm. They knew the bridge, though. They called it Grandmother's Night. The 7th night of the 7th moon. When you cross the birds to see the lady who glows. Niu Lang, old now, white-haired, moving with care, sat on the bridge with his youngest grandchild asleep on his lap and his celestial wife beside him. The same bridge, the same river. A different family around them. Bigger, louder, more. He looked at her. She hadn't changed. Not one line, not one gray hair. The jade pin still holding back the same black hair, the same silver flecks, the same glow. He'd loved her as a young man. He loved her as an old one. The shape of the feeling was the same. She said, "Are you afraid?" He said, "Of what?" She said, "Of what comes next." He looked at the river. "Not really," he said. "I've practiced letting go of you every year. I'm good at it now." She pressed her forehead against his, the glow from her skin lighting the lines of his face. 60 years of the same bridge, 60 goodbyes, 60 hellos. And still, this, still the forehead touch that says everything words can't. He died in winter. Quietly, in the cottage he'd built, the same one, patched and repaired and standing. The grandchildren around him. The bamboo staff in the corner. The ox hide folded in the chest. He closed his eyes and didn't open them. Across the river of stars, Jai-En felt it. The way you feel a thread snap in a loom. Sudden, sharp, the whole pattern shaking. She stood up, looked toward the far shore and knew. She sat down. Picked up the starlight thread she'd been working, and kept weaving. Not because the grief wasn't real, because weaving was how she held the world together. It always had been. Even now, especially now. The magpies came that seventh night anyway. They always came. The family crossed. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren now. They visited the lady who glowed. They brought bamboo cuttings and grain and new dolls. The bridge held. Some say New Lang became a star himself, that the Queen Mother, in her one act of mercy, lifted him to the sky and placed him where he'd been sitting for 60 years. Altair, the coward star, still looking across the river. Now they're both stars, both waiting, both shining. And every seventh night of the seventh moon, the magpies still fly, the bridge still forms. And somewhere above you, 2 points of light draw close enough to almost touch. That's the story. That's the whole story. But it's not finished, because it happens every year. Every seventh night. Every time the magpies decide that love is worth the effort. It's happening right now. Above you. But we're not done yet. Because this story isn't just about two people and some birds. It's about what you do when the distance is real. When the person you love is right there and unreachable. When the river won't part. The Queen Mother drew a line and called it law. The magpies ignored the line and called it love. The story doesn't tell you which was right. It tells you both happened. And the magpies kept coming. Think about the ox. An old animal that remembered being divine. It could have been bitter. Could have cursed the sky that cast it down. Instead, it watched over a lonely boy and spent its last breath on the words, "Keep my hide. You'll need it." The ox gave its body. The magpies gave their wings. New Lang gave his life. Joyoung gave her divinity. Every part of this story is about someone giving something they can't get back. And doing it anyway. Remember, she could have taken it. Flown back to heaven on her own. But she left it in the chest, beside the ox hide. A goddess who chose to be mortal. And when they dragged her back, she left the key to return. On purpose. You've been there, left something behind on purpose. A book at someone's house. A sweater in a car. Not forgetting, anchoring. Making sure there's a reason to come back. A thread that stays connected. She invented that. The story tells us 3 things. First, love doesn't require proximity. You can love across a river of stars. Across a city. Across the space between 2 pillows at 3 in the morning. Second, bridges are built by the small, not by gods, not by queens, by magpies, by ordinary creatures who see suffering and decide, no, not today. The bridge in this story is made of compassion. Every one you've ever crossed was 2. Third, one night can be enough. Not ideal. Not fair, but enough. If you know it's coming, if you count toward it, if you fill it completely, one night can hold a whole year's worth of love. The myth says so. The stars agree. The hairpin that tore the sky, it's still up there. The scar it left became the Milky Way. Every time you look at that band of light, you're looking at the wound, and at the bridge that crosses it, both at once. Some versions end differently. In some, the Queen Mother relents, opens the river, lets them live together. But the version the grandmothers tell, the real version, keeps the river. Because the river is the point. The love that survives the river, that's the story. Tonight, wherever you are, Vega is above you. Altair is above you. The river is between them. And somewhere the magpies are gathering their wings. You don't have to believe it. But isn't it nice to know someone does? The Queen Mother pulled the hairpin from her crown. She dragged it across the sky, one clean stroke, and heaven broke open. The sound not thunder. Something older. The sound of everything being separated from everything it loved. The silver river flooded the gap. Not water, starlight. Billions of stars compressed into a current too wide to cross, too deep to wade, too fast to swim. It filled the space between their reaching hands in less than a heartbeat. Jianyou screamed. The sound crossed the river and arrived as rain. On the mortal world below, it rained for 7 days. People sheltered in their homes. They didn't know a goddess was crying. They just knew the sky wouldn't stop. New Lang sat at the river's edge with the children. He didn't move for 7 days. The boy brought him water, cloud water, tasteless. The girl sat beside him and hummed. The melody her mother hummed at the loom, the one nobody taught her. And then, on the 8th day, the first magpie landed, small, black and white, ordinary. It touched down on the star water and didn't sink. It looked at New Lang. It looked at the river. And it opened its wings. The bridge formed that first time with only 100 birds, thin, barely wide enough to walk. It swayed with every breath of wind. But it held, and New Lang crossed it holding one child in each arm. That first reunion on the far shore. Jian didn't speak. She pressed the girl's face against her neck. She pressed the boy's head against her chest. She held them so tight that her celestial glow wrapped around all three like a blanket. New Lang stood back, watching, giving her the moment, his empty arms at his sides, his empty arms that had carried them across a bridge of birds. She looked up at him over the children's heads. "Come here," she said. He did. That first night lasted 6 hours, not enough. When the bridge dissolved and the river returned, the girl didn't cry. She waved. Small hand, steady wave. Because now she knew the birds would come back. Knowing changes everything. The Queen Mother learned about the bridge on the 3rd year. An official reported it, nervously, sidelong, the way one delivers bad news to a queen. She listened. She put down her scepter. She said, "Let them have it." 3 words. Let them have it. The official blinked. The Queen Mother did not repeat herself. She turned toward the window and watched the sky. Her sky. The one that had been gray for years without its weaver. Perhaps she missed the colors too. But the decree remained, 1 night per year, no more. The river stays. The law holds. She would bend this much, but she would not break. The difference between mercy and surrender was important to her. It always had been. And so it continued. Year after year, the same bridge, the same crossing, the same reunion and the same goodbye. Some things that repeat aren't monotonous. Some things that repeat are prayers. The mortal world below kept turning. Dynasties rose and fell. The farm passed to the son, then the grandson. The bamboo fence was rebuilt 7 times. The cottage stood. The loom stood. The weaving continued. Here's the part the myths never make obvious. The story didn't just survive because it was sad. It survived because it answered a question everyone asks. What do you do when the distance won't close? You bridge it, even if the bridge only lasts 1 night. Jianyu never stopped weaving, even in exile, perhaps especially in exile. She pulled threads from the starlight and made patterns no eye would see. The weaving was her language, her love letter, her way of saying, "I'm still here." She wove the sky again eventually. The Queen Mother didn't ask. One morning the colors returned to the mortal world. Sunrise pink, cloud gold, storm gray. People looked up and said, "Look, the sky is beautiful again." They didn't know who to thank. The Queen Mother noticed the colors returning. She stood at the edge of the heavenly court and looked at the sky, really looked, for the first time in years. The pink, the gold, her granddaughter's work, still perfect, still faithful, still hers. She didn't send word, didn't say thank you. But the next year the Magpie Bridge lasted 8 hours instead of 6. The year after, 9. Whether that was the Queen Mother's doing, or the magpie's growing strength, no one knows. But the nights grew longer. Time continued, the way it does. Not stopping for anyone, not for mortals, not for gods, but bending, sometimes. Making room, giving an extra hour here, a longer sunset there. Time has its own form of mercy. But the decree remained. The eternal decree. 1 night per year, the river stays. The Queen Mother's word was the architecture of heaven. Laws don't bend because they feel sorry. Laws hold because someone decided they must. New Lang understood this. He didn't rage against the river. He didn't curse the Queen Mother. He sat at the edge and waited. Because waiting, when you know what you're waiting for, is not suffering. It's devotion with a calendar. Jianyu understood too. She wove, she watched, she sent her small cloths across the river. She counted down the days, and when the magpies came, She was always standing, always ready, always reaching. The world below kept their story. Poets wrote about them. Painters captured them. The Qixi festival grew, from villages to cities to the whole empire. Two lovers in the sky, one night of reunion, the whole country looking up. A poet in the Han dynasty wrote, "The Weaver star is bright tonight. Who among us hasn't wept at a river we cannot cross?" 2,000 years later, the line still holds, because the river is always there, different for everyone, but always there. What is your river? The question doesn't need an answer. Not out loud, but somewhere in the dark, in the quiet, you know. Everyone has a silver river. Everyone has someone on the other side. The distance takes different shapes, but the ache is the same. The magpies answer it. Not with words, with wings. With the simple decision to show up, every year, not because they're ordered, not because they're rewarded, because they've seen the river and they've decided, no, not while we can fly. Maybe that's the real story. Not the lovers, not the queen, the magpies, ordinary birds who looked at an impossible situation and said, we can fix this. We're small, but there are a lot of us. And if we hold on to each other, we make a bridge. The story endured because it wasn't finished. It wouldn't end until the last magpie refused to fly. And magpies, they don't refuse. Not in this story. Not in any version. The compassion of small things is the most reliable force in the universe. Niu Lang died, but the bridge kept coming. His children crossed it. His grandchildren. His great-grandchildren. New faces every year for the woman on the other side. She learned every name. She memorized every face. She never forgot a single one. Centuries passed. The farm below became a village. The village became a town. The loom was passed down through the family like a heartbeat. And every 7th night of the 7th moon, someone from that line crossed a bridge of magpies to visit a woman who glowed. The Queen Mother watched it all. She was eternal. She would outlast everyone in this story. And perhaps that was her punishment. To watch love persist despite her. To see her law obeyed and her intention defeated, simultaneously. One version says she came to the bridge herself. On the 500th year. Stood at the edge and watched Joyeni with a great-great-great-granddaughter. The child looked up at the Queen Mother and said, "Are you a star too?" She didn't answer. She turned and walked back, the bridge behind her, the law intact, the love continuing, both true at the same time. That's the hardest part of this story. The Queen is not wrong. She's just not the hero. The magpies are. The new threat was never a villain. It was never a monster or a war. The new threat was time itself. The river would flow forever. The magpies would come forever. But the mortal half of this love, that had a clock. And the clock was always running. The magpies came from the south that year. A formation so large it darkened the evening sky. Wing after wing. A river of birds heading toward a river of stars. The mortal world below looked up. Something was happening. The birds knew the route by now. Generations of magpies had made this flight. The knowledge passed from parent to fledgling like a song. Not learned. Inherited. The way to the river, the way to the bridge. The way to hold on. Niu Lang had been a star for 200 years. The spot where he once sat was just cloud now, worn smooth by his mortal weight. But when the magpies arrived each year, the cloud warmed, as if remembering. Still wove. Still stood when the bridge formed. But now she received descendants she had to squint to recognize. The family tree branching wider with each century. She loved them all, each one a thread in the pattern. Some years the bridge carried 100 people. Some years, just 2. An old woman and her grandchild, or a soldier and his wife. The bridge sized itself to the need. The magpies always sent exactly enough. A girl crossed 1 year. 15 years old, weaver's hands, her mother's silver, flecked eyes showing up 8 generations late. She looked at Jiang Yu and said, "I brought something." She held out a piece of cloth. It shimmered. Zhaidan Yi looked at the cloth, at the girl, at the hands that made it. She said, "Sit with me. Let me show you something." And for the first time in centuries, the celestial weaver taught someone to weave starlight. The girl came back every year. Her weaving improved. The shimmer in her mortal cloth grew stronger. At 20, she was making fabric that moved. At 25, fabric that sang soft, barely audible, like her grandmother's hum. 8 generations passed. The legacy continued. The story passed down like the loom. Hand to hand, mother to daughter, grandfather to grandchild. Changed slightly with each telling, but always the same 2 stars, always the same river, always the magpies. Poots kept writing about them. Li Bai, Du Fu Qin Guan, who wrote the most famous line, "Love that endures is love that endures being apart." 2,000 years and no one improved on that. No one needed to. Painters captured the bridge. Always the same scene. The sweep of birds across a river of light. 2 figures meeting at the center. Every dynasty had its version. Every brush found the same truth. Love is worth painting. Musicians set the story to music. A guzheng, 21 strings plucked with quick fingers, played the separation. The melody descended, stopped. Then, a single note ascending. The bridge, the return, the reunion played in sound. The opera came next. Painted faces, flowing sleeves, the role of Zhuanyu, always played by the most beautiful singer in the company. She'd cross the stage on a prop bridge and the audience would weep every time. Every single time. For 2,000 years. Children drew it with sticks in the dirt. 2 dots. A line between them. Birds crossing the line. The simplest possible version of the story, and still complete. Because the story was never about complexity. It was about the gap and the crossing. Merchants carried the story along the Silk Road. West to Persia to the edges of the Roman Empire. East to Korea to Japan. The names changed, the details shifted, but the structure held. 2 lovers, a river, a bridge that shouldn't exist but does. In Japan they called her Oriheim. In Korea, Jinyo. Different syllables, same silver-flecked eyes. Same separation, same bridge. The stars don't care what language you use to name them. But the original story, the Chinese one, stayed closest to the sky, because it started with the sky. The loom was celestial. The robe was feathered. The river was made of stars. Every detail pointed upward, toward where the story lived. The farm endured. Through floods and droughts and dynasties rising and falling, the cottage was rebuilt. The ox pen disappeared. The bamboo fence became a stone wall. But the well the ox used to drink from, that stayed. Some things refused to change. Descendants of Niu Lang and Jian Yu, real descendants. People who believed their blood carried starlight, lived in that valley for 1,500 years. They kept the loom. They kept the well. They kept the 7th night. They said the well water tasted different on the 7th night. Sweeter, colder. As if someone had dropped a star into it. Nobody could prove it. Nobody needed to. Faith isn't about proof. Faith is about the taste of the water on the right night. The story folded into daily life. Weavers' guilds adopted Zhuanyu as their patron. Women seeking skill in needlework prayed to her star. Not to a distant goddess. To a woman who'd held a mortal loom and laughed at her first crooked cloth. Young men prayed to Altair. Not for farming advice, for courage. The courage to cross a bridge that might not hold. The courage to reach for someone the universe says you can't have. The co-word, patron of impossible love. The magpie became a symbol of joy. In Chinese culture, if a magpie lands on your roof, happiness is coming. Not because of anything the bird does, because it remembers how to build a bridge. And bridge builders bring good news. Red thread. You've heard of it. The red thread of fate. One end tied to you, the other to someone else. It comes from this story. The red cloth that bound their wrists. The thread that connects what the river separates. Invisible. Unbreakable. Every love story since has borrowed from this one. The impossible distance. The stolen meeting. The bridge that shouldn't work. Romeo's balcony. The notebook in the rain. The train platform in a Bollywood film. The pattern repeats because the feeling repeats. But this story doesn't end. That's what makes it different. Romeo dies. Tristan dies. Everyone in those stories gets an ending. Niu Lang and Juan Yu, they get a cycle, the bridge, the night, the goodbye, the waiting, the bridge again, forever. The cycle is the point, not the reunion, the cycle. The myth doesn't promise that the river will close. It promises that the bridge will come again and again, until the last magpie can't fly. And magpies, they don't stop flying. Maybe that's enough for tonight. Maybe that's enough for any night. To know that somewhere above you, two stars still shine, a river still flows between them, and every year, without fail, a bridge appears. But the story carries one more truth, the hardest one. Love doesn't fix everything. The river didn't close. The Queen Mother didn't relent. The ox didn't come back. Love, even a love this strong, doesn't undo the world. What love does, in this story, is outlast the damage. The river is still there. But so is the bridge. The Queen Mother is still on her throne. But the magpies still fly. Nothing was solved, everything was survived. That's what 3,000 years of telling this story has taught us. Not that love conquers all, but that love endures all. There's a difference. Conquering means the obstacle is gone. Enduring means you're still here, and so is the obstacle, and you bridge it anyway. Juan still weaves. Right now, the colors you saw at sunset today, that was her. The pink you didn't notice at dawn, her too. She weaves from exile. She weaves alone. And she makes the world beautiful without being asked. That is devotion. The ox would have liked that. If an ox spirit can like things from wherever it went, it spent its mortal life watching over a lonely boy. It spent its death carrying that boy to heaven. Even gone, it was still helping. The children grew into legends themselves. In some versions, the son became a star beside his father, flanking Altair like a guard. The daughter, a star beside her mother. Two pairs, still separated, but visible, always visible. The sky is a family portrait. Altair and his children on one side, Vega and her daughter on the other, the Milky Way between. And every seventh night, the magpies bring the frame together. One night, then apart again, the portrait breathing. You've seen Vega. You might not have known its name, but you've seen it, the brightest star in the summer sky, blue, white, and steady. The next time you see it, you'll know. That's the weaver, still working, still waiting, still glowing. And Altair, warmer, softer slightly to the south, the coward star, the man who crossed a bridge of birds every year for 60 years. He's still up there, still on his side of the river, still looking across. Between them river, the Milky Way. Billions of stars compressed into a band of light. Beautiful, terrible. The wound that became the sky's most recognizable feature. The scar that everyone loves to photograph. No one photographs a scar for the pain. They photograph it for what it survived. The bridge is up there too. You can't see it, not with eyes, but the magpies know. They always know. And on the right night, in the right month, if you listen, you might hear wings, thousands of wings, rising. The magpie holds a special place in Chinese culture. It's the bird that announces happiness. In Chinese, its name, Qixi, literally means joy bird. When a magpie sings outside your window, good news is on its way. Magpie paintings have hung in Chinese homes for centuries. A magpie on a plum branch, double happiness. Two magpies facing each other, a wedding blessing. The bird became the living symbol of the bridge between what is and what could be. The magpie was chosen for this story because it does something other birds don't. It stays. Through winter, through cold, through seasons when other birds flee south. The magpie stays, and in Chinese culture, staying is the highest form of loyalty. Real magpies are clever. They recognize themselves in mirrors, one of very few birds that can. They remember faces, they share food, they mourn their dead. The story chose the right bird. A bird capable of compassion would build a bridge. When you see a magpie now, black and white, iridescent tail catching the light, remember, that bird is an architect, a bridge builder, a creature that looked at separation and said, I have wings, I can help, and it did. back to the bridge. One particular seventh night, centuries into the story, the magpies arrived in greater numbers than anyone had seen. Not thousands, millions. The sky went dark with wings. Something was different. The bridge that formed was wider than any before, wide enough for a road, wide enough for a crowd. The magpies packed so tight that their wings overlapped. Layers deep, strong enough to hold the weight of centuries of family. The family crossed, all of them. Every living descendant of New Lang and Joyang. The loom keepers, the weavers, the farmers, the children, the grandmothers. A whole lineage walking across a bridge of birds to meet the woman who started it all. She touched every face, every hand, counted the silver-flecked eyes. There were 7 that year. 7 descendants who'd inherited the celestial mark. 7 weavers in a line of hundreds. She memorized each one. A child, maybe 4, maybe 5, tugged at her robe and asked, "Are you really Grandma Juyang?" She knelt down. "Yes," she said. "And you?" The child held up a small woven square. "I made this," the child said. "For you it didn't shimmer, it didn't need to." The bridge held all night, longer than any bridge before. As if the magpies themselves refused to tire. As if their wings had decided, not yet, not tonight. Let them have this. And the night stretched, and the river slowed, and heaven held its breath. But dawn came. Dawn always comes. The magpies separated. The family crossed back. The river filled the gap. And Jianyu stood alone again, surrounded by gifts, surrounded by evidence of love, surrounded by everything except the people who gave it. She picked up the child's weaving, pressed it against her chest, closed her eyes. Then she sat down at her exile loom and began to weave, because that's what she does. That's what she's always done. Turn grief into beauty. Turn separation into color. Turn waiting into art. The sky that morning, the mortal world's sky, was the most beautiful anyone could remember. Pink that ached. Gold that hummed. Clouds shaped like bridges. She was saying something. Through the sky. The only language that crossed the river without permission. The descendants looked up. They knew. The grandmother who glows was talking to them through the dawn. Telling them, "I'm here. I saw you. I'm weaving. Come back next year, and every year after." The story settled into eternity. Not frozen, breathing. Each year the same and different. New faces, new dolls, new weavings. The same bridge, the same river, the same 2 stars. The rhythm of a world that chooses love over convenience. In some versions, the Queen Mother softened over the millennia. Not all at once. A degree per century, like a glacier melting. By the 1000th year, she stood at the edge of the heavenly court on the 7th night and watched the bridge without interference. By the 2000th year, some say she sent flowers, left at the foot of the bridge, no note, no apology, just celestial peach blossoms, the flowers only she could grow. Joy found them, recognized them, and added them to her exile garden. The story never records a reconciliation. No apology, no lifting of the decree. The river stays, the bridge stays, the annual meeting stays, and the flowers appear. That's the closest heaven comes to saying, "I was wrong," in flowers, not in words. The peach blossoms are the quiet part, the part most people miss. Because reconciliation doesn't always look like a speech or an embrace. Sometimes it looks like flowers left where you know someone will find them. 3,000 years of this story. 3,000 years of the same bridge, the same river, the same 2 stars. And it hasn't stopped. It's happening right now. The magpies are gathering. The stars are shining. The river is flowing. And somewhere someone is weaving. The children in the mortal world still learn the story. In schools, in bedrooms, under quilts with flashlights. The same story. 2 people, 1 river, 10,000 magpies, and a love so stubborn it bent the rules of heaven. Adults tell it differently, more carefully. They pause on the parts about the Queen Mother, because adults understand duty. They linger on the ox, because adults understand sacrifice. They cry at the bridge, because adults understand that one night is not enough, but it's all you've got. The Qixi festival has evolved. Modern China celebrates it with roses and chocolates and restaurant reservations. The stars are harder to see through city lights, but the festival persists. Because the need it serves, connection despite distance, hasn't changed. Long-distance couples claim the seventh night. Video calls at midnight, counting the days. Waving across screens the way New Lang waved across stars. The technology changed, the river didn't. Military families know this story without being told it. The deployment that separates. The homecoming that heals. The countdown on the kitchen calendar. The seventh night. Any night. When the bridge appears and you cross it running. Parents separated from children know it. Custody arrangements that split a family across geography. The child who visits every other weekend. The calendar that marks the crossings. The bridge, whatever form it takes, always built by someone small and determined. The myth reaches everywhere separation reaches, and separation reaches everywhere. The river takes 1,000 shapes. Distance, illness, time zones, arguments, death. But the bridge takes only one: show up, open your wings, hold on. Juani is still weaving. Right now. As you listen, the sunset tomorrow will have her colors in it. The clouds will hold shapes she designed. The sky, every sky, carries the fingerprints of a goddess who chose love and lost and kept working. Altair is still burning. The coward star, the mortal who became light. He doesn't weave. He just shines. Steady, warm, pointed at Vega. The way a compass points north. Not because it chooses to. Because it can't do anything else. The river flows. It's always flowing. The Silver River. The Milky Way. Carrying billions of stars between two lovers. It was created by anger. It's maintained by law. But it's crossed by compassion. Every year, without fail. The magpies are gathering. Somewhere. Right now. You can't see them from here. But they're there. On branches, on rooftops, on power lines. Waiting for the seventh night. Knowing the rote. Remembering how to hold on to each other. The Queen Mother is on her throne. She will always be on her throne. The law she made is permanent. The river she created is eternal. But the flowers she sends, those are new each year, fresh, unnamed. Left at the foot of a bridge she didn't build. The ox is gone. The oldest friend, the first companion, the one who said, "Keep my hide." The one who carried a lonely boy to love and a desperate father to heaven. Gone. But not forgotten. Not in this story. Not in any version of this story. The children became stars. The grandchildren became legends. The great-grandchildren became the weavers in the valley. The valley became a town. The town became a city. The city still looks up, on the seventh night, looking for two stars and a bridge. The story is alive, not preserved, alive, growing, changing, being told tonight, right now, to you. In English, by a stranger's voice. But the stars don't care about the language. And the magpies don't care about the accent. If it rains on the seventh night, the Chinese say those are Chinese tears. Tears of happiness mostly. But also, the tears of a woman who must let go again. Who must watch the bridge dissolve and the river return. Who must stand alone and remember how to breathe. If it's clear, those are her weavings. The stars she polished, the clouds she shaped, the sky she made beautiful, because the alternative was to make nothing at all. And making nothing, for a weaver, is the only death there is. The story asks one question, and it never stops asking. What would you cross? For the person on the other side of your river, what bridge would you build? What wings would you borrow? What distance would you walk? You don't have to answer tonight. The river will be there tomorrow, and the night after, and the night after that. But the magpies are ready whenever you are. They just need you to say yes. The wings are theirs. The decision is yours. In Japan, they call it Tanabata, the festival of the stars. They write wishes on colored strips of paper and hang them from bamboo. The strips flutter in the wind, each one a prayer heading skyward, to the weaver, to the coward, to the birds. In Korea, it's chilseok. They eat wheat noodles, the last wheat before autumn, and look for the two stars. If it rains on chilseok, they say the lovers are crying. If it's clear, they're smiling. The whole sky. An emotional weather report. In Vietnam, they celebrate that the seventh eve. Young women pray for good partners. The story crossed borders and seas and centuries. And everywhere it went, people did the same thing. They looked up. They hoped. They waited for the bridge. The story adapted. In some Japanese versions, Orihime weaves so beautifully that she never meets anyone. Her father, the Sky King, arranges the match with Hikabashi. They fall in love, stop working, and are punished with separation. Different start, same river. Every version keeps the magpies. No culture that adopted this story changed the birds. Not to cranes. Not to eagles, magpies. Small, clever, stubborn birds that stay through winter and recognize their own reflection. The story knows who the heroes are. The bridge dissolves every year. That's important. It doesn't stay. It can't stay. If it stayed, it wouldn't be a bridge. It would be a road. And roads are built by engineers. Bridges, the kind that matter, are built by creatures who are willing to be exhausted. The exhaustion is the price. The magpies don't bridge the river for free. They give their energy, their rest, their night. They tremble on the water. They hold through cramps and cold and the terrible weight of love. And they come back next year. That's the miracle. Jinung weaves the sky every day, not because she's told to, not because the Queen Mother demands it. Because the sky needs color and she's the one who can give it. Purpose doesn't require permission. It only requires a loom and two hands. The ox lives in the story. In every telling, every grandmother's version, every picture book, every opera, the ox is there. Cracked horn, large brown eyes, the friend who gave everything. Some deaths are endings. The ox's death was a door. The children are everywhere in this story's descendants. Every child who's been shuffled between parents. Every child who waves goodbye on Sunday evening. Every child who holds a doll tight and doesn't cry because crying doesn't bring them back. The red thread persists. You'll find it at Chinese weddings, tying wrists, wrapping gifts, connecting chopsticks. The thread that says, this bond is older than you. Older than your grandparents. Older than the dynasty you were born in. The needle test still happens. On Qixi night, young women threading 7 threads through one needle by moonlight. If you succeed, Joinun blesses your hands. 3,000 years, same test, same needle, same moon. The stars don't change. Altair and Vega will be there tonight. Tomorrow night. The night you're 80. The night your grandchildren look up and ask, which one is the weaver? And you'll point. And you'll know. The story survives because it's true. Not literally. Literally there is no bridge of birds. But emotionally, truthfully. Every separation, every reunion, every person who has waited and then, for one night, had everything. That's true. That's the truest thing. The river between you and whoever you're missing right now. It's real. I know. I'm not going to tell you it'll close. This story doesn't promise that, but it promises something else. The bridge, the annual, unreasonable, miraculous bridge, built by the small, crossed by the brave. Tonight, before you sleep, listen, you might hear wings. Or you might hear the silence where wings will be. Both are the same promise. The magpies are coming, they always do. The final bridge. The most important bridge. Not the first, not the biggest. The one being built right now. This year. Tonight. The magpies descending through the dark, wings catching starlight, heading for the river. Wing to wing. Body to body. The bridge forming from both shores, meeting in the middle the way it always does. The birds singing the working song. The river protesting beneath, the magpies holding. Jinun Yi steps onto the bridge, bare feet on feathers. 3,000 years of this step and it still trembles. She walks toward the center. The stars above watch. The river below churns. And on the far shore, though he is Starlight now, she can feel him there. She always could. The star Altair brightens. Just slightly. Just enough. A warmth that crosses the remaining distance. Not light, not heat, but presence. He's there. On the bridge, in the starlight on the feathers. Everywhere she walks, he walks with her. She stops, closes her eyes, the bridge of birds beneath her, the river of stars around her, the warmth of Altair above her, and she lets go. Not of him. She'll never let go of him. She lets go of the distance. Because on the bridge, there is no distance. There is only the crossing, and the crossing is love. And love, in this story, in every story, is enough. The Silver River is every distance you've known. The miles between cities, the years between visits. The silence after a door closes. It takes different shapes, but the ache is always the same. The weaving is what you make from loneliness. Not the loneliness itself, but what your hands do while you wait. The meal you cook. The garden you tend. The letter you write but never send. The ox is loyalty. The kind that costs everything. The friend who says, "Keep my hide, you'll need it," knowing they won't be there to see it used. The sacrifice that doesn't ask to be witnessed. The queen mother is duty. The rule that says, "This is how things must be." Not cruel for cruelty's sake. Cruel because order requires it. The hardest thing about her is that she might be right. And the magpies. The magpies are everyone who has ever seen injustice and said not today. The friend who drives 4 hours. The neighbor who brings soup. The stranger who holds a door. The feathered robe left behind. That's the choice that hides inside every love story. Zhuang left her way home. Deliberately. She chose mortality over divinity. Earth over heaven. Him over everything. The myth insists on it. Not 2. Not 12. 1. Because the myth knows something. One night, when it's all you have, becomes infinite. You fill every minute. You say everything. You hold on until the bridge dissolves under your feet. Maybe that's why we tell this story at bedtime. Because sleep is a small separation. The eyes close. The world goes away. And when you wake, the bridge is there. Morning. The crossing back. Love doesn't conquer the river. The story is honest about that. The river stays. But love builds a bridge. And the bridge comes back. That distinction matters more than any ending could. Presence is not proximity. You can be present to someone across an ocean, across a war, across a lifetime of missed calls. Presence is the warm star that burns toward you regardless of the distance. The children who grew up on the river's edge, they became people who understood waiting. Who knew that patience isn't passive. Patience is an act. Every day you choose to stay is a day you build the bridge. The cloth dolls arranged on Zhuanyu's shore. 14 of them, then 20, then 40. Each one a year. Each one a proof. Not of skill, of showing up. Of bringing something across the bridge, even when the bridge is temporary. The peach blossoms, the Queen Mother's anonymous gift, are forgiveness without words. Some apologies don't need language. They need a gesture. A flower left where it will be found. 3 forces in this story: law, love, and compassion. Law made the river. Love endured it. Compassion bridged it. None of them won. All of them lasted. The story doesn't pick a side. It holds all 3 in balance. The queen has her reasons. The lovers have their hearts. The magpies have their wings. And all of them are right. That's why it's lasted 3,000 years. It doesn't simplify, it doesn't say, love wins. It says, love persists. Through rivers and rules and the grinding of time. Not winning, not losing, continuing. The children on the bridge. What we carry across impossible distances. Not possessions, not ambitions. People. The boy on his father's hip. The girl clutching her doll. What matters carried. The things we refuse to let go. The feathered robe, the ox hide. The cloth doll. The small woven messages dropped into the river. The bamboo cutting carried to heaven. We hold what matters until our hands can't hold anymore. The bridge is always temporary. The love that builds it is not. That's the final symbol. The magpies come and go. The bridge rises and falls. But the love is the river. Always flowing, always there, always between. The weaver and the coward. The stars and the river. The birds and the bridge. 3,000 years of telling. And the only thing that's changed is who's listening. Tonight, that's you. Qixi still happens every August, give or take. Couples look up at Vega and Altair, restaurants fill, roses sell out. The ancient story dressed in modern clothes, but still the same underneath. Needlework contests on Qixi, women threading needles by moonlight, the old tradition. Some use silk, some use dental floss. The tool changes, the prayer doesn't. Bless my hands. Help me make something beautiful. Each decade finds the story again. Animated, live action, reimagined. The costumes change. The special effects improve. But the scene everyone waits for is always the same. The bridge, the crossing, the touch. Songs carry the melody. The same intervals. Ascending, pausing, descending. The shape of separation scored for voice and instrument. A singer in a recording studio closing her eyes, finding the note that sounds like reaching. The love story template lives in everything now. The video call that replaces the bridge. The text message that replaces the woven cloth. The emoji that replaces the ox's golden voice, smaller, faster, but the same shape. Every long-distance couple is New Lang and Juan Yu. The airport reunion. The train platform wave. The calendar with the visit circled in red. The counting. The waiting, the crossing. Every military homecoming. Every diplomat's return. Every traveler walking through their own front door after months away. The bridge, whatever form it takes. And the crossing. The arms that open. The weight that lifts. Every parent watching a child leave for college, for a new city, for a life that doesn't include daily visits. The Silver River opens. The counting begins. The Magpies, they take the form of phone calls now, weekly. Enough. The Coward and the Weaver are everywhere. In every couple who says goodnight across time zones. In every family that gathers once a year. In every person who looks up at the sky and thinks of someone far away. The story ends the way it began, with 2 stars, 1 river, and a bridge of small brave birds who refuse to accept that love should stay separated, 3,000 years and counting. The stars are above you now, Vega and Altair. Whether you see them or not, they're there. The river between, the magpies gathering. The river flows quieter now. The stars settle into their positions. The night deepens around you, soft and old and patient. Somewhere, a weaver pulls one last thread through light. The color of sleep. The color of almost morning. The color you see behind closed eyelids. The magpies fold their wings, one by one. The sound of feathers settling is the sound of the world going quiet. We'll be here, when you're ready. Another story. Another night. The stars will be in the same place. So will we. The river slows. The stars dim. The last magpie closes its eyes. The weaver rests her hands. The threads go still. The loom holds its last pattern, waiting for morning. The night holds everything. The river, the bridge, the stars, you. Sleep now. The magpies will be here in the morning. The bridge will wait. Good night. The stars are watching, they always are.